Milestone speaking.
He was a patient man, especially when it came to his daughter. On Sunday afternoons, he would sit unflinchingly with his paper, while his shoulders transformed into the branches of a makeshift climbing tree, or his hair was mercilessly yanked into miniature braids. At bedtime, he would pause when he got to her favorite phrase, the one about the great gray-green, greasy Limpopo River, all set about with fever trees, so that she could jump in and contribute to the recitation. And at their drinks parties, while caterers passed platters of deviled eggs and foie gras and toast, he never sent her back to the kitchen when she emerged carrying a tray of peeled mandarins with blueberry yogurt dip, insisting that the guests have seconds. But on this dreary Saturday, his patience was beginning to wear thin. His back ached from shoveling snow in their long, winding driveway that morning, only to see another 2 inches fall an hour after he finished. His mother-in-law had come to stay and was insisting on making polite conversation in her broken English, to which he could only just respond with polite smiles, nods, and the ever-so-faint sound of gritted teeth. And his wife had taken their 3-year-old to a birthday party, leaving him with an unusually cantankerous child and a bag full of brand-new snow boots in various styles, colors, and sizes. It is one of life's many little ironies that her early years were defined by hatred of shopping for shoes, given how her tendencies developed quite to the contrary years later. Tantrums in the children's shoe department were marked by sharp kicks that deflected the offending item and sent it flying through the air, or occasionally connected with an unfortunate shopkeeper, and were punctuated with an overture of forceful screams that seemed impossibly loud for such a small person. Her parents, not being of the modern, laissez-faire approach to child-rearing that tolerates such self-expression, were mortified by their uncouth daughter and decided that, until she had learned how to behave in public, the trying on of shoes would simply have to be relegated to the confines of their own home. And so her father sighed heavily as he watched her cherubic features warp into a gargoyle's mask, her rosy cheeks now beet red and streaked with angry tears as she stomped her feet indignantly in defiance and howled. He could only conclude that from her demeanor that, if mere shoes were offensive, then snow boots were in the league of dentist visits and Brussels sprouts. As the disapproving eyes of his mother-in-law burned into the back of his head, he reached the end of his rope. "So you don't want any snow boots?" he asked. "No," she cried, huffing and puffing and seething with clenched fists. "Fine, let's go for a walk." He arched an eyebrow and went to get their coats, glancing at her expectantly. For a moment she paused, unsure of how to proceed, but she decided to call his bluff and marched to the front door in her little white socks, her best efforts at stomping muffled by the carpet. The January air greeted them insolently as they stepped onto the front porch, looking out at the long winding driveway that led down to the street. Where cars had passed their house in the road, the snow had turned to slush and the dark shadow of the pavement was visible. But their driveway was hitherto untouched by tracks or footprints. And so they walked into the winter, a few feet apart, as she refused to accept his outstretched hand for balance and kept her distance. The snow crunched loudly under his grown-up feet, and he glanced at her in his periphery. She stared straight ahead, lips pursed. "Are you sure you still don't want some snow boots?" "No. Not as loud as last time, but just as stubborn." "Hi, Ginger." They made it to the end of the driveway, and he asked her again. No reply this time. So they turned around and walked back in silence to the house. Her clenched teeth began to chatter. Once back to the front door, he took her inside. They remained silent as he gently peeled off the little white socks and wrapped her feet in a warm towel, then put on her woolly slippers. Then he left her amidst the myriad shoe boxes that were strewed across the floor and went to his study to find the newspaper. As he settled into his armchair, the door opened and she walked in, refusing to meet his gaze. "I want the pink ones," she said, head high and eyes focused intently on a spot on the floor. "Very well. What do we say?" "Thank you for my snow boots, Daddy." "You're welcome, Fiona."